My name is Njabadi Tesla. I'm from SAICA. I'm the project manager in the training department, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to come and give you guys a chat regarding the training regulations and a couple of things to take into consideration. So with me, I went through the training contract route. So I started my journey at VETS. So I did my undergrad and postgrad at VETS. And then I completed that and went to PwC for my training contract. So I did a 3-year training contract. And briefly before that, so before I even jumped into PwC, so I had a bit of a hurdle in terms of academics. So I didn't make it through my 3rd year. I had to repeat my 3rd year. And I always say, for me, that was a learning curve. For me, it was just a reminder that even when things go wrong, it absolutely can fall right back on track and you'll be able to continue and finish what you wanted to do. So the training contract at PwC was quite fun, quite challenging, quite interesting. And I must say, I did make a lot of connections, which up until today, I still keep in touch with some of the people. So yeah, just a couple of things to think about. And I don't know if most of you are already in a training contract or thinking of going into a training contract. So if you are in that position, just a couple of things to remember as you go into your training contract journey. So first of all, you should always remember what the objective is. So the objective ultimately is to get signed off, is to complete your studies and to register either as a CA or an AGA. So that is objective. And even when you're busy going through a training contract, you should keep that at the back of your mind. And as I've already mentioned, intentional networking, it's quite important to build those networks in the workplace and outside the workplace. And the support system as well is quite important. It's quite important to have people in the workplace who are going through the same journey as you, who understand your struggles, who understand what you're going through, as well as managers as well and mentors. It's quite important in the journey. And as well, quite important as well, if you are studying and doing a training contract at the same time, it's quite important to balance those two things together in order to make sure that you do indeed succeed. So it's also important to also communicate some of your boundaries and challenges to your managers and your peers so that everyone can be on board on this journey and ensure that you do get through it successfully. And yeah, the last thing just to touch on is taking ownership of your development. Ultimately, it is the responsibility of you as a student or as a trainee to ensure that you do get through the journey, you do make it to the other side. So just taking that ownership and a bit of steps to make sure that you are actually advancing. So yeah, so in terms of your training program, I'm tasked with explaining what the training regulations are and the importance there of it. So first of all, what are the training regulations? So training regulations pretty much sets out how a training contract should function. It sets out everything from, it will define all the all the terminologies that you're going to use in the training program. It will define the duties of a training officer, the duties of a trainee, and in terms as well of what is the requirement. For example, if you start in a training contract with your highest qualification being metric, so you'd have to be on a 5-year contract, so it pretty much sets out everything. So I would say the biggest takeaway from this should be that the training regulations are important and you should at least have sight of it. We do update them once a year, but it's normally not a lot of changes, 1 or 2 changes here and there. So I would just say have a thorough read through it once, and then every year just go and have a look at what has been updated and also refresh your knowledge. So yeah, in terms of your training contract journey, the first step would be to get your training contract registered on TCMS. So if you haven't done that, you need to do that as you have 7 months from your contract start date to have that contract registered on TCMS. So the sooner, the better. And in terms of the duties as a trainee, so every trainee accountant has certain obligations and duties as per the training regulations. It's in Annexure 3. So you need to first of all diligently serve the profession, and you shouldn't engage in any other work or business without the consent of a training officer. So it happens that sometimes you might have a task, or let me not say a task, maybe you do have a bit of engagement on the side outside of your normal work environment. So you do need to have written consent from your training office in order to be able to go about that. And one of the important things as well is to do your assessment forms on time, be it your LORs on the EIT system or be it the TSRs and PSRs on the 2016 training program. As a trainee, that responsibility also falls on your shoulders as well. Then touching on to the duties of a training officer, the training officer as well, they do have certain duties and responsibilities. One of the main ones is to make sure that as trainees, you do have enough exposure so that you can reach your proficiency levels as well as the competencies required in order for sign off. So that is a duty that a training officer has at all times. So if you find that a training officer is not exercising that duty and you've had discussions with them and to no success, that is when you can definitely bring it to our attention as SAICA. Then during the training contract period as well, important to remember, especially if you're studying, is academic progress rules. So academic progress rules pretty much means that you need to pass at least one academic year in a 2-year period. So if you fail to do that, your training office can cancel a training contract or they can give you an additional year called discretionary year. Should you not pass in that discretionary year, then they would have to cancel a training contract. So academic progress, it applies strictly to everyone who does not have an accredited qualification. However, if you do have an accredited qualification and your training office does require that you study further and have CTA, they can definitely do that. And you'd need to also show academic progress for CTA. And yeah, some of the things as well to take into account is suspensions. Sometimes life happens. You might find that you need to suspend. Maybe you've fallen ill or there's something else that's happening. It's also set out in the regulations. So you can have a look at some of the examples of scenarios whereby you can suspend your training contract. I think one of the popular ones is maternity leave. So you can definitely suspend your training contract. And if you get to the end, you don't have enough competencies or you don't have enough core hours, you can have an extension. So that definitely does try to assist trainees to get over the line. Then once you get to the end of your training contract, that's when you do have the discharge. So to be discharged, you need to have met all your competencies, met your core hours, and completed your training contract duration. And yeah, then you said that your training office would pretty much approve that discharge. So you'd apply for it on TCMS, and then the training office would be able to approve it if they're happy with everything. All right, so one of the things I wanted just to highlight as well is in terms of discipline and ethics. So as everyone knows, you're supposed to, as a trainee accountant, you're supposed to abide by this code of professional conduct as well as the SAICA bylaws and the training regulations. So it's quite important as well to behave or conduct yourself in a manner that won't put you in a scenario where there is punishable conduct on your side as a trainee. So some of the examples that I can think of is pretty much doing your timesheets correctly, and as well as such things as arriving on time on work, being professional when dealing with your stakeholders or your everyday colleagues. And yeah, and one of the important ones which a lot of trainees end up in trouble for is the last one here, which is serving your notice period. And as everyone knows and everyone is familiar, you need to serve notice period when you do actually resign from an office or when your contract comes to an end. So some of the trainees, it happens that sometimes they do resign effective immediately, or they do resign and serve a short notice. So if you don't have written consent from the training office, that could be seen as punishable conduct, that you, in essence, breaching the employment contract. So you just need to be careful in terms of that. Either get the notice period waived or pretty much serve the notice period as required. So for anyone, hopefully no one is going to end up in this scenario of having disciplinary. So, but if you do end up in such a situation, you just need to basically keep yourself with what is out there. I would recommend you to look at the frequently asked questions on the SAICA website. We do touch on and explain what it means. As well, have a look at Regulation 13, the training regulations. It does explain what it means. So yeah. Yeah, I think that pretty much that's what I wanted to cover from my side as well. and to leave a bit of time for some questions. So in terms of contact, you can contact me always on this email address. Mostly I do deal with training or trainee related matters. So you can reach out to me. But some of the items here as I've listed, for example, if with regards to a penalty waiver application, which I didn't touch on, is also in terms of a penalty waiver, if as a trainee you have to leave from one office to the other, if it's one of the reasons which was outside of your normal control, for example, let's say the office was to be deaccredited, or you fell ill and had to cancel a training contract and then resume at a later stage, or you had to cancel for full-time studies and meet all the other requirements, you can get a waiver in terms of the 6 months penalty on your contract. So if you do want to, or if you do qualify for that waiver, you can always reach out to Nell and then he will assist in terms of that. Anything else as well in terms of, for example, if you have EAT related issues, you can contact Zendesk. If you have technical issues on TCMS, you can contact TCMS at SAICA. So that's pretty much our contact list as the training department in a nutshell.